Welcome back to episode 23 of the Melton True Blue podcast. Today I'm joined by Mr. Chris Womack. We got some interesting and some fun things to talk about today, but before we dive in, I want to take a minute and welcome Chris. Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Um, I've been driving for a little over 6.5 years, 5.5 with Melton. Before that, I was a police officer, retired.
Awesome. Retired from law enforcement. And you said, well, I'm too young to just sit at home and do nothing, right? So you wanted to find a new career?
Correct. And I wanted something that was going to be, uh, I wanted something that was not going to be the same thing every day.
Yeah, get bored kind of doing the same thing over and over. And you landed on trucking, right? So what did that journey look like of getting connected and kind of getting credentialed and getting ready to start that career look like?
Um, Really, when I started back, 6+ years ago, you could get your CDL through some of the larger companies, and they guaranteed you a license within 3 weeks. And I lived in California at the time, so I really did think that that was the correct way for me to go. I didn't think that I knew how to drive a truck. I just felt like I could get my CDL within that time, and I would learn how to drive a truck.
Got it.
So so I went with one of the bigger companies, and I got my CDL within 3 weeks, and then did 3 weeks of driving with a trainer, and then I was required to do a total of 10 months with that company.
Okay, yeah, and that's the way that works. They're going to take the time to bring you in and train you how to drive a truck, and then you just kind of stay committed to them for whatever that time frame looks like. What kind of
Right.
driving were you doing during that time?
That company was dry van, and it was also team driving. What I quickly learned was I hated dry van. It's it's boring, and you sit around a lot more than you do in flatbed. The other thing is that I quickly learned that I did not enjoy team driving whatsoever.
Yeah.
You rely a lot on another driver to be safe, and also you don't see anything. You drive for 10 hours, you go to sleep for 10 hours, you wake up 3 or 4 states ahead, and you don't even know how you got into the parking area. You don't even know how to get out of there. So it was not fun for me.
Yeah. And again, you said you like the idea of different days looking differently to you. And I guess I can see where you're coming from when I'm going to drive my hours, I'm going to sleep, I'm going to drive my hours, I'm going to sleep, right?
Right.
Looking for that variety, I can understand where you're coming from. So you said enough drive in, enough teams. So where'd you go from there?
Well, while I was on the road, that's when I learned that I wanted to try flatbed. So I started really talking to drivers from different companies, including Melton. And once I started the process of interviewing with companies, I quickly learned that I wanted to work for Melton as a flatbed driver.
Awesome. So let's talk about some of the differences between not necessarily teams, right? Because that's a whole different beast, but between drive-in driving and flatbed driving. What are some of those differences been like for you?
Well, dry van, a lot of times you're going to companies uh, and you're dropping hook. So a lot of the times I was dropping a loaded trailer, picking up an empty trailer, and driving 100 miles to another place, dropping that empty, picking up a loaded trailer. But a lot of times you were doing it at 2 o'clock in the morning because that company that I worked for hauled FedEx and UPS and Mayfair and stuff like that. So your trailer, you might get there at noon, but your trailer's not going to be ready till 2 in the morning or something like that. So you were sitting around bobtailed, sleeping in the truck, really just kind of waiting until that trailer was done. So you waited around a lot, and if you got offloaded, you're sitting at a warehouse and you're waiting your turn, and your appointment may be at 1 o'clock in the afternoon or 8 o'clock in the morning, but it could take 4 or 10 hours before you got unloaded. So you're just sitting in the truck waiting. You had nothing else you could do. You couldn't leave. You couldn't go down the street or anything like that. You sat in that trip in your truck and waited.
Yeah, that can be pretty frustrating. So you found that maybe the schedules and kind of the way things unfold in flatbed is a little bit more consistent.
Yes, I mean, you know, the perfect reality or the perfect situation would be to be unloaded by 8 o'clock in the morning, get your next load, and be on the road, 10 before noon type of situation. It doesn't always work that way. Some of our companies, they set up appointments. And your appointment may be 2 in the afternoon, and it's not going to move. So you just plan your day as you go to get there at whatever time you're going to get there.
Right. So tell me about and not everyone wants to go drive over the road, right? Some people decide to do it for a short time, in the beginning of their careers, but ultimately their goal is to eventually get off the road and, drive locally. But you have a different mindset. You enjoy the over the road aspect. You like to travel and see in different places. What does that look like?
Yes, I have no plans of working, doing day cab and working regional or local runs. That just does not appeal to me whatsoever. I enjoy doing over the road. I enjoy, people ask me, don't you want to know where you go every time? I really don't care. They tell me to go pick up here and I'm going there. I find out at the same time I get the load. It does not bother me that I don't know where I'm going from day to day.
Yeah.
There are places that I don't want to go, but I don't care. If you send me those places, I'm going there. I'm not going to get upset that I'm going to Baltimore as opposed to maybe going to Phoenix, Arizona for me. But um, it 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 all works out for me, so I have no issues with it.
I thought it was pretty interesting. Something you mentioned when we were talking before, and you said I didn't want a job, right? I wanted more of an experience of getting out there and just having different days and seeing different places and different experiences. So I kind of see where you're coming from
Yeah,
now.
you know, one time I delivered poles or beams, I should say, for solar panels in the middle of a field in Oregon, and they had to make the road for us to get there. And one time I was out in South California in the desert area there, and they had to make a road and we couldn't venture off that road. It was so sandy, you would have been stuck. So you had to stay on that road. You had to follow the path. And I enjoy those things. I just enjoy those types of things. I've delivered at a college before, and you, it's tight in there, and
Yeah,
they got to make you some room, how to get in and how to get out. So
that's cool.
I enjoy those things.
And you also mentioned like, there's some places you don't really want to go. Like if you're asked to go there, you'll go. But what about some places that you do like to go? Like you've been doing some over the road driving for a number of years now. Are there some areas of the country that you just absolutely love?
I enjoy being west. Anything west of 35 in the summertime, you can send me to Colorado, you can send me to Idaho, you can send me to Montana. Those are the areas that I enjoy being in the summertime. In the in in the wintertime, it's just a luck thing. This year I've been on my truck since January, and right off the bat, we had storms that were going through Kansas, St. Louis, and stuff. I ended up picking up and going to Georgia, and I missed that storm. And then they sent me up to Indianapolis 2 days after the storm to pick up. There was snow on the road and there were trucks that were in the ditch from 2 days ago, but I picked up and I was out of there, right? And then, so I've missed all the storms. I've been lucky that way. I haven't been shut down or anything like that, but I'm
That's
not gonna complain that I'm going in those directions. You just deal with it.
Yeah. So definitely luck's been on your side this year. You're staying in front of or away from the storms. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, with Melton in my 5.5 years, I've never been shut down for snow.
Awesome. So let's talk. We talked about flatbed. We talked about some of the other experiences that you've had. What is it about talking with these other drivers and looking into companies when you decided, hey, let's get into flatbed and driving over the road? What was it about Melton that kind of attracted you?
Well, Milton, what I like about Milton is they allow you to be in charge of your truck. So, you get a route suggestion or a fuel solution, right? But it's not that you have to follow that. With the other company I was with, if you've deviated from that, you get a phone call that you weren't on the route that they gave you. Milton has never done that. You have some parameters on what you can and can't do, um, but one time a few years ago, I knew that 80 was going to be shut down, and so I just made my new trek all the way back through and down south and ended up there. It was 105 more miles than what Melton had suggested, but I beat the storm. I delivered on time, and I asked my DM for the 105 miles. They gave them to me. So,
There
you
you
know,
go.
you just those things that's one of the things that I enjoy about Milton. Um, and when I was out there, looking at them, I enjoy the trucks. They give us good equipment, and that's another positive for the company.
Yeah. And that's something, I connect with a lot of people who are going through CDL school. I also connect with a lot of people who are getting ready to transition out of the military. And that's kind of one of the things that I enjoy sharing as well is, in Melton, you're considered the, CEO, or on the military side, the CO of your truck. You are going to receive guidance. And that's especially you know, helpful and important if you're a new driver. But for someone who has some experience under their belt and they see an alternative path to be able to accomplish something a little bit easier than what Melton is suggesting, there's nothing wrong with going and doing that. You have the ability to mix things up. Now, obviously, your goal is to complete that load, deliver that load, accomplish that mission. But you want to do it in the most efficient and effective way. So it's a win for you and it's a win for Melton. So that experience level comes into play and it helps everyone involved.
Right, right. And as long as you're making money for yourself and the company, everything's good.
Yeah. We're not going to get mad if the company's making money, right?
Right,
And drivers aren't going to get mad if they're making money.
right.
So was there so with that kind of, I guess, a little bit of freedom, a little bit ability to kind of not be pushed in a box and go out there and kind of have a little bit more decision making. Was there anything else about Melton? Anything that attracted you? Was it something that you were connected with a recruiter on, or was it word of mouth from other drivers? Well, anything else that kind of sticks out to you?
A lot of it's word of mouth. Um, a lot of drivers. I remember meeting one driver, and he was with another company, but he worked for Melton for a period of time, and he said that Melton was the best time he had as a driver. And I've heard of other drivers coming back to Melton, um, regretting their
Yeah,
thoughts of going to another company. It didn't work out the way they had planned it. For me, the first company I worked for, it wasn't necessarily a bad company, but it wasn't a great company. A lot of the things that company did that were pretty negative, I've never experienced with Milton at all. And in my 5.5 years now with them, there's been some things that have come up for me, and Milton has made sure that I was taken care of. I had
yeah.
some a medical issue with my father and stuff. They made sure I got home. So I
That's one
can't.
of the big differences between Melton and some other companies is there's a lot of individualized support. You know what I mean? From a company where some companies have that mindset of this isn't how we operate. This is what we do. This is what we don't do. Where I see a lot with Melton, and I've heard so many stories over the years from different drivers as, something out of the norm. They receive that individualized support of being able to go take care of something or get help accomplishing something. Or maybe I need to get home in a different manner or a quick manner. Melton just typically is like, hey, we're going to help our drivers. We're going to support our drivers in the best way that we can, even if this isn't normally the way we would do it.
Right. Right. And yeah, and that's the thing. There's no, nothing that's okay. If it doesn't fit in this box, we're not doing it. So there's nothing like that in it. Another positive for me is I have a great DM. She's been here. She's going to be here 20 years come May, and she's been my DM for the past 5.5 years for me, and she's taught me quite a bit, and she trusts me. So that's a big positive as well.
Give your driver manager a shout out. Who is it?
Katrina,
Katrina.
Katrina Cormati. She's great. She
Awesome.
does a great job.
And you've been with her the entire time you've been with Melton?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And, again, that's something I like to communicate because I don't think you can overstate the importance of the relationship between a driver and a driver manager. The better the two of you can work together, the more you can understand each other's needs and how you guys can work together to make sure that, Katrina and the company is accomplishing what they need to accomplish and you are accomplishing and getting the support that you need on your side. And that's an important piece of it.
Yep, you're right. And so I've just never had anything where it didn't work out. I can't complain whatsoever.
Awesome. So where do you see your future going? I know you retired from law enforcement. You've been in trucking for around 6 or 6+ years now. I mean, what's the trajectory look like? What's your career looking like?
Well, I've got over 600,000 miles. So when you go over that 600,000 mile mark, you start thinking about that 1 million mile truck. Um, and I don't necessarily, think of a color or anything like that. I just want I just want to be able to do 1 million miles with Melton, and then possibly have that ambassador status. Uh, you don't ever really think about it that much, but after the 600,000, it starts becoming something that's attainable.
Yeah, yeah. Before that, or especially when you're first starting out, it's like, oh man, that's not a goal that is anywhere in the realm of me accomplishing. And then, like you said, wait, you wake up one day and you're like, well, I don't know. It's kind of I'm knocking on the door. We're getting close, and that's a pretty elite status right there. That
Right.
ambassador.
Yep. But
Awesome.
as far as my future, um, I don't see myself. I know I'm not going to another company, and I've said this before. But when I'm done trucking, I will. When I'm done with Milton, I'll be done with trucking at that point. So
Okay.
I don't know where that number is, but I know I have at least 4 more years in me.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's talk about in the frame of, hey, maybe someone's watching this who is thinking about getting into trucking, or maybe they're already in the process of getting ready to start that driving career. Is there any kind of tips, or is there one particular thing that sticks out to you, a piece of advice that you would like to share with somebody?
Well, I know a lot of people, especially young guys or new drivers, they always hear that the money's in OTR, and that's true. It is in there. Um, but a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of sacrifice there. You're not going home. You're you're not going home every 3 weeks because you're not going to make any money if you're going home all the time. Yeah, you can go home every 2 weeks, depending on where you live, but you're not going to make any money at that. So if you have a family, and they have to understand where that's at. But you may not enjoy doing over the road, um, and so you just need to think of all of the things that come along with being OTR, um, with a company, whether it's Melton or another company.
Yeah. And a lot of people who are coming into the industry are going to be almost the opposite of what your path has looked like. You did something where you were law enforcement, where you were home every day, for the most part at least, right? And then
Hmm.
eventually, later in your career, when you're ready to do something different, now you enjoy being gone. Whereas the common entry point into trucking a lot of times is the opposite, right? I'm going to come in and I'm going to drive over the road to get to that being home on a regular basis, right? So that's the conversation that I enjoy talking with new drivers, CDL students, of uh, over the road driving isn't cut out. Not everyone's cut out for over the road driving, but sometimes it's a great stepping stone to get ultimately where you want to be. And the most common entry point into trucking still today is over the road. And like you mentioned, sometimes depending on your circumstances at home, that does require sacrifices, right? I
Right.
like to give the advice of, if there is if that's the large goal, being home, working Monday through Friday, having really good pay, really good benefits, a company that takes care of their employees, what are their hiring requirements, right? Those
Right.
really good companies, they probably want to see a couple of years of experience under your belt, maybe even 3 years, who knows?
That
Uh,
that's true. That's true. You're not going to just get one of those really good, great jobs at your home every day right out of CDL school. So
yeah.
you're probably going to have to put in your dues in OTR with a company. And if you're going to do that, you might as well come to Melton.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of and it doesn't have to be Melton necessarily. We champion Melton because we know how great of a company it is. But ultimately, the goal is this is my dream company. This is a company I know I want to work for because I'm going to stay home. I'm going to, have good working hours. I'm going to make good money and good benefits. How do you get there? It is by joining a company like Melton or a company that kind of fit your circumstances. But make sure it's a company that's going to take care of you. They're going to support you. They're going to give you the ability to grow within your career, even if it is just for that 12, 24 months or whatever it looks like, and expand your skill set and really just get prepared to go home and be that really high competitive candidate to get that job that you really, really want at home.
Right.
But along the way, there are some sacrifices. So I like that you brought that up for sure.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, Chris. You've been over the road for quite a while. You've had to have seen a lot of stuff over the road. I know you said that your over the road experience has been fairly boring, but is there anything, any kind of cool story, funny story, anything that you've witnessed, or maybe you've heard from a buddy, any kind of entertaining story that you can share with us?
Well, I do have one story. I was delivering in New Jersey at a construction site, and there was about 12 trucks that were coming in there. And we were coming in on a Monday. On Friday, what they did was they actually plowed a road into this construction site. So we came in one way and just went out the other way. And it was like a left turn in there. So it went straight and made a left turn. And what they had done was they brought 8 trucks, dump trucks full of dirt and laid it out with and and smoothed it all out with a bulldozer and everything. And when we get there, I'm the third truck in line. So the first truck goes out there, and it was during the wintertime. There was no snow, but the ground had frozen, so it was solid, which was good. So the first truck goes in there, and where they wanted to unload was at the turn, but they really couldn't quite get all of the product off his truck as good as they wanted to. So the next truck, they thought, we'll get him a little closer. That didn't work out. Well, well, before they unloaded me, before they brought me in there, they said, "Hey, we're gonna." That ninth truck that they didn't dump was still there, so they said, "We're just gonna dump that dirt. Bulldozer come and level it out, and what we want you to do is come swing out a little wider." I said, all right. So I go, so they do it. I go look at it and it's soft. And I told them, I said, I'm gonna get buried in there. And they're like, oh no, you'll be fine. I said, no, I'm gonna get buried. And the bulldozer guy was gonna go, he was gonna leave. He was gonna take that truck and go. And I told him, you can't leave yet because I'm gonna need you to get me out of this. And he's like, okay. He goes, but you'll be fine. I was like, no, I'm not. So drove on in there, and sure enough, the truck I mean, it just buried it past the front bumper. The front bumper is half under in dirt, and it's stuck right there. And uh, and I couldn't even get to where they wanted to get it unloaded. The truck just buried in. So they unloaded me, and I got 2 chains out, and I threw them out the back, and I'm standing at the back. I got the chains hooked. I can't find anybody, and they're all at the front of my truck. Bulldozer, everybody's at the front of my truck. Come around there. I go, "What are we doing up here?" And he goes, "Well, we're gonna hook it to your bumper and pull you out." I was like, "No, you're not. You're gonna jerk my bumper off. Let's pull it from the DOT bumper." And I've got two chains back there. And they're like, "Well, how are you gonna get out?" And I said, "You pull me far enough back, I can make that turn after this." So they did. They hooked it up and jerked me out back, and I was able to make my turn and get out of there. But
Yeah.
those are the things that I really do enjoy about the job is that I didn't call Melton and tell him that I'm buried, that I need a tow truck or anything. I just thought about the whole situation, and that's really what you have to be in this job is you just have to make decisions. Another one is I had 5 stops in L.A. area. And my first stop was in Laguna Niguel, which is basically a beachfront town. There was no reason why I should have been there at all. And I was dropping off a couple AC units, and where they were at was they had parking for people that would catch the bus, right? And so the guy wanted me to drive in there, and I was like, "No, I can't go in there. We're going to have to do it from the street." And the guy goes, "Well, do you have a pallet jack?" I was like, "No, I don't have a pallet jack." I said, you're gonna need a forklift. He's like, "I don't have a forklift." So luckily he was working for the city of Niguel and Laguna Niguel. And so the guy came over and he said, we've got a forklift at our city lot. He said, "Why don't you just drive over there and we'll take it off and we'll figure out how to get it here." So we did. So I drove over there, but I never called Milton to say, "Hey, this is the situation." I just got it handled. Milton never knew that I had to drive somewhere else to get it unloaded. I did tell my DM, and so she got me an extra $25 for an extra stop.
Yeah.
But
But like you
I
said,
just
finding
got it.
solutions.
Yeah, just get it handled.
Yeah.
So I just those are the things that I really do enjoy is just going to places like that. Delivering solar panels in a field that they had just cut a trail for us to go through. I enjoy all that stuff.
Awesome. Well, Chris, man, it was wonderful getting to know a little bit more about you and your background and kind of what your experiences look like. I appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate today.
Awesome. Well, guys, I appreciate you joining us today. Hopefully, you enjoyed the discussion with Chris. Make sure you join our next episode. We'll see you soon.